Hello everyone, this is Simon from writtenlegalenglish.com and welcome to this video where I'm going to go through the text that I asked you to have a look at on Tuesday. Now, this text was from the instructions from a present I bought myself, and the text is a translation presumably from Chinese into English, and where the translation really hasn't been done that carefully, which is always an argument to one, use a qualified translator, someone who knows what they're doing. Don't just automatically trust online translators, even though they are getting better and better. Sometimes it's just worth going to an expert. And secondly, having the translator's work proofread just to make sure that it actually communicates well in English, because translators sometimes fall into the trap of direct translations without thinking about how that message actually works in the target language. So there's a couple of arguments here straight away for using experienced professionals in their fields. So I bought myself a drone, I got this message, and I asked you guys to work out what is going on. If you haven't had the chance to do this yet, then pause the video now and come back to me in 2 or 3 minutes. If you have, then let's get started. Okay, the first thing to do when you're presented with a block of text that's difficult to understand is break it down. Look at the block of text, break it down into smaller chunks which are easier to work with. In this case, I've broken down this text into 4 different parts. So now that we've done that, let's work on how to make the language work, communicate better messages. And the first message is simple enough. This product is not a toy. I think that's important. But then the question becomes, do we have to call this product something else? Should we call this product, as I said, it's a drone. Should we call it a drone? Should we call it a machine? Shall we call it a tool? What is it that we should call it? And should we call it that in the first place? Should we just say it's not a toy? What do you guys think? If you have got any ideas about how you would redraft this, or you disagree with anything that I say in this video, then please leave a comment below and I'd love to have that conversation with you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, do we really need to say everything else? That it's a precisive equipment that integrates mechanics and electronics with expertise of aerodynamics and high frequency transmitting. Do we need to say that? And if we do, what is the real message there? Well, I'm not 100% sure, but if I had to identify a message there, it would be something like this. You need to have experience of using drones or using remote-controlled drones before you use this drone. Something along those lines. Perhaps. I don't know. What do you guys think? The second thing is that it requires to be correctly assembled and debugged as to prevent the accident from being happened. I think it's pretty simple to work out what the message is here. Please assemble the drone correctly. If you use the drone when it is not correctly assembled, you may cause an accident. Something along those lines. I don't think there's a need to talk about debugging. I don't think it's necessary. At least from my limited drone flying experience, you don't debug drones. But once again, if I'm wrong, please leave a comment below. So already we're doing a lot of work. We're not just superficially making little changes here and there. What we're doing is we're going back to zero and we're finding out what those messages are. Okay, now the last 2 bits. The product owner should operate or control it in a safe way. And then we've got this disclaimer of kinds coming up. So how would you redraft this? My attempt could be this. Please use. And I would be happy with use. I don't think there's a need to specify operate and control. I think use is probably a good enough verb to capture how you might use a drone. It's everyday language. Everyone understands use. Operate and control might be technically specific, but do we really need to say that? Secondly, the disclaimer. We are not responsible for any injury or loss caused by your use of the drone. Now, we could of course redraft that in a slightly more friendly way. We can do, but sometimes legal messages need to be communicated clearly and straightforwardly, and this is almost boilerplate in terms of not using toys for the purposes that they should be used for, or using them in a dangerous way. So, and it's easy to understand. There is a passive-esque bit at the end caused by your use of the drone. This is the bit that I said maybe could be redrafted in a slightly more friendly way, but ultimately this is a straightforward message. And then we've got this last point here, and we cannot control the operating process. I understand why the manufacturer is saying this, because the manufacturer is in effect repeating what they're saying, what they've just said. That is to say, we're not responsible for any injury or loss. We're not responsible for that. And they're trying to add to that message by saying, we can't control you, so that's why we can't be responsible. So the question then becomes, do we really need to say that? Is there any legal significance from saying these two things together, or is this simply a tautology, a repetition, where a lawyer thinks they need to include this to cover their bases, but they don't actually really need to say it? And this habit, this bad habit of repeating one message in a multitude of different ways, is something that we see in legal writing a lot, and the plain language community would argue against this. That is to say, find your message, work on that one message, and then you don't need to repeat yourself endlessly saying the same thing in slightly different ways. Okay, so when we get to the end, this is my scaled down, redrafted version of the text. Product's not a toy. Please assemble the drone correctly. If you use the drone when it's not correctly assembled, you may cause an accident. Please use this drone safely. Maybe that's a repetition. Maybe we don't have to say that. Maybe we can scrub that sentence. What do you guys think? And then lastly, we are not responsible for any injury or loss of property caused by your use of the drone. Simpler, straightforward, easy messages, easy to understand. I think it covers all of the bases. What do you guys think? Leave your comments below. As I said, I always enjoy getting involved in conversations like this and seeing what you guys come up with. And with that being said, please remember to join me on all of my social media channels, whether it's YouTube, And with that being said, please remember to join me on all of my social media channels, connect to me on LinkedIn, join me on Facebook and on YouTube, and if you want to support me and get access to questions and my answer videos, you can do that on Patreon as well. Okay guys, have a great weekend, and I'll see you again on Tuesday next week.